liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out today. My name is Jeff McCluskey. The fight to restore America is as important as anything else we could be doing today. I first met David Cox about 4 years ago when David was running for Colorado's State House of Representatives. David spoke about the 10th Amendment, a remedy to push back against federal overreach. The 10th Amendment says that all power not specifically delegated to the federal government is retained to the states and to the people. Could you imagine if the founding fathers who drafted that only 240 years ago looked around and saw a federal government who was telling us what light bulbs we can own, what we can put into our bodies, and interfering with every part of commerce that we transact every day? David understands that allowing we the people to decide how to spend our own money benefits our economy more than the bloated programs of government bureaucrats. David and I began working together about 3 years ago, joined by the inspiration we heard in the clear message of Dr. Ron Paul. Since his first office in Texas in 1976, Dr. Ron Paul's message of the promises of freedom and the dangers of government expansion have remained unchanged. How many politicians can you say that about? Everyone here knows that our leaders in Washington, D.C. have failed us. Their primary or only concern is their own re-election. They have silently presided over the destruction of our Constitution and of the law. They watch while America crumbles. They continually raise the debt ceiling, Scott Tipton, enslaving us and our children to the private banks and the foreign nations who hold our debt. Our leaders in Washington assert that they have the authority to read our every email and listen to our every phone call. While our people starve, our bankrupt nation gives foreign aid to countries that blatantly use us and burn our flag. To buy votes, our politicians create ever larger welfare programs, deliberately ignoring how this destroys the incentive to work, destroys capital, and is turning our whole country into a wasteland that looks like Detroit. Washington, D.C. knows that the game cannot go on forever. Other countries of the world are tired with America's money printing, bailouts to insiders, and bad debt. Those of us who speak out against the tyranny of our own government, which we fund, are spied on and harassed by the IRS. We are entering an increasingly dangerous time. As Judge Andrew Napolitano says, it is dangerous to be right when your government is wrong. Our leaders have gone so far as to declare that any American citizen can be labeled a terrorist by a secret presidential court and can be imprisoned for life or even put to death without the right to a trial or any due process of law. This is criminal and treason and worthy of impeachment. Our leaders' empty talk and lack of action is obvious and insulting. This is personal. This is a personal attack against our freedoms and ourselves and our families. We are discouraged with the empty promises and lies of the two-party system, and we are looking for real alternatives. This afternoon is an honor and a pleasure to introduce my friend David Cox. David is a student of history. He is a lover of the Constitution and of justice. He is a true believer that freedom and reason are the means to a better society, not centralized power, government mandates, and authoritarian force. David is the one in the room who will shout the truth even when it is unpopular. As a peach farmer, David has shown tireless dedication to providing something better for his family and for his community and for his country. If we know that time is short, if we know that politicians have done too much already, we will work to help him win this election. For ourselves, for our families, and for the future of America, we must work to restore the constitutional legal limits on our government, a government that has stopped listening to our people and no longer pretends to obey the law. Please join me in welcoming your next Congressman, David Cox.
Thank you, Jeff. Well,
I really appreciate all of you coming out to support me and to, well, more than supporting me, support the idea that we can have a constitutional government, that we can rein our out-of-control federal bureaucracy in and return to a local level of control that facilitates our prosperity and our peace, our community's solidarity and togetherness. What we've witnessed over the last, well, it's been 100 years since the signing of the Federal Reserve Act, is a dramatic switch from a constitutional frame of government over to a bureaucratic fascist government. If we fail now to stop this slide and recognize where we're at and where we are shortly to be headed, no pun intended, we're going to miss this opportunity, and it's imperative that we do not miss this opportunity. Why am I running as a Republican? Well, the Republican Party is based in free markets, individual responsibility, coupled, of course, with individual freedom, and the rule of law, and that being the Constitution, a limited government based on the Constitution. Unfortunately, the Republican Party has failed miserably to protect these ideals and ensure that this is in fact more than just rhetoric. I want to be part of that group of all of you folks who brings the Republican Party back to its roots, back to a position that's not just rhetoric, that brings about real policy change that will benefit our lives, increase our prosperity, and make us a happier and more secure people. Right now, the unlawful and criminal federal government is unquestionable. They are cutting our veterans' pay while at the same time sending hundreds of billions of dollars abroad to regimes that are dictatorial, that are destroying their own cultures. And we are supporting these regimes in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, and many others. And at the same time, we're taking away our veterans' benefits, and we're reducing the very people who are responsible for protecting this nation. We are taking from them and allotting this money abroad to a group of it's nothing more than a global cartel that's being supported by our central bank and their central banks. The weapons and military supports that we have given to these people it is nothing short of a criminal act, and it decreases, it destroys our own security. These people are not our friends. These people have none of the same ideals that we do. They do not believe in equality of men under law. They believe in oligarchy. They believe in superiority of themselves and their ability to reign supreme over their people and crush dissent. Right now, our Department of Defense is pursuing a policy that seriously harms our security. This is a federal issue. We cannot maintain the quality of life, the peaceful society that we have, if we do not have a Department of Defense that is completely committed to our security. Why do we not have borders that are protected? Why are our borders wide open? Why is it that 54 generals will sign a letter urging our president to protect our borders and protect our insecure and sensitive nuclear sites, and yet we have no action? This must be addressed. And the other thing that must be addressed is that when we go abroad and we drone bomb haphazardly looking for one militant out of 50 and we kill 100 people to get one, this is wrong. This is not the right way to go about a foreign policy of securing our interests. This is how you create enemies. This is how you create enormous future problems for this country. These people have deep-seated resentment and anger, and it's justifiable. Their lives are no less important, no less valuable than ours. And if we have someone who is a militant, who is violent and planning destruction in our country, we have a process for going about apprehending that person. Article 1, Section 8 gives the power over war making to the United States Congress and states that the United States Congress must declare war in order for the president to take action unless there is an immediate or imminent threat that is going to be acted upon. Well, folks, these guys have no immediate ability to attack us. We are under attack by our own representation and our own leadership. The second thing that is imperative that we cover is our financial system. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 5 states, "No state shall accept anything other than gold or silver in payment of debt." Right now, the notes that each of us have in our pocket, called Federal Reserve notes, have no connection whatsoever with gold or silver. This connection was severed in 1971 by the Nixon administration, which was a foregone conclusion after the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, and then the subsequent confiscation of gold by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933. We are bankrupt now. We are running a $500 billion a year deficit, which has gone on for the last 15 plus years. Obviously, this cannot last. If the other central banks of the world decide to end their collusion with our corrupt central bank, which they are threatening to do and planning to do openly by the creation of the Gulfo and China's move to begin trading in gold rather than in American dollars, that spells doom for the value of our dollar, as the entire global world market for dollars will be inflated dramatically. The central bank masquerades as a creator of prosperity, when in fact it is the exact opposite of that. Ever since its inception, it has overseen enormous instability, starting with the largest depression or the greatest deflationary cycle the United States and the world has ever seen, which was in 1919 to 1921. Following that, the 1929 crash was a Federal Reserve resulted calamity. The Great Depression that followed that, the horrible stagflation of the 1970s, followed by interest rates in the 20% range in the 1980s, and then the 1987 crash, and then the 2001 and 1998 was another crash, 2001 was another crash, 2007, 2008 was another crash. Anybody who sits here and looks at this system and says a system that has taken 96 to 98% of the value of our dollars out of our pockets and transferred it to themselves, who believes that is a good and stable system, is out of their minds. We had a stable system. It was an asset-based currency system, a free marketing currency system that resulted throughout the 1870s to the 1890s in the largest expansion of the middle class and the earning power of the common man that has ever been known, perhaps throughout the entire history of the world, certainly the history of the United States. It was called the Gilded Age, and that Gilded Age was characterized by rising wages, rising values, and a destruction of the power of banking. It's no joke, no reason. It's very reasonable that these interests, these powerful banking interests, recognize the threat of the free market to their cornering and their control of the system, and foisted upon us through lies and deception the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. We know that centralized finance destroys decentralized prosperity. The connection between the central bank and the total state that we're moving into is unmistakable and inextricably linked. Without the Federal Reserve System printing money and robbing us silently of the value of our dollars, they cannot continue to finance all of their specious activities, because we would revolt against the taxation that would be required in order to do so. No one, whether on the left or the right, would stand by and watch the enormous amount of wealth being taken from them if it weren't for the silent and subliminal means of theft that is enabled by the Federal Reserve Central Bank. Our immigration policy is not a policy at all. We have open borders. Our actual policy is come one, come all. This is no policy. This is total negligence by our representation. We have a myriad of federal agencies that are involved in criminal actions on a daily basis. One of the latest and most egregious was the Fast and the Furious scandal, where our alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and I use the word "our" very, very loosely, because they're not ours. They are belonging to the federal regime, a group of corporate elitists who have definitely disregarded our best interests for a very long time. Fast and the Furious was an example where the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency deliberately transferred weaponry to various drug cartels in Mexico. These weapons eventually ended in enormous loss of life, casualties in Mexico. And one of our own Border Patrol agents, Terry McAuliffe, was killed by these rifles that the ATF provided to these violent people. And at the same time, they're trying to pass laws to renew the 1994 assault weapons ban, to take from you and I our ability to defend ourselves. This is absolute mind-numbing ridiculousness, the fact that we allow this to go on. But until we get representation who will step out and speak up and speak clearly and to the point on what is wrong and why it's wrong, we will continue to experience the exact same type of problems. The IRS targeting of various political organizations, all of which were conservative in nature, is just a perfect example of what the IRS's power is. It is an organization that was created to provide political advantage to certain groups while robbing the rest of us of our right to a free system. When you look at what has happened throughout the 20th century, and most lately, the income tax is simply a tool to allot advantage to certain groups and take from others, to suppress certain people and to levitate others. In 2006, General Electric had a